Hello, let's talk about books. I've got my bullet journal, I've got my Kindle, I've got my stack of books. Let's go. First up is another play that I read for uni. If you watched last episode, I read Othello for uni. I'm doing an introduction to English literature subject for my uni English degree. And this one is Pygmalion by Bernard Shaw. Now this one is Bernard Shaw, not George Bernard Shaw. I think his name's trying to be rehabilitated because Bernard Shaw didn't like George Bernard Shaw by the end of his life. This is nice and short, and I will probably write an essay on this one because it's short. Pygmalion was first published in 1916, but then it was revised in 1941 after the first English language movie version came out. You probably know the story of Pygmalion if you've seen the musical My Fair Lady, because My Fair Lady is based on Pygmalion. It expands the story, it changes the ending, but the essence is still the same. Eliza Doolittle is a flower seller in the street. She meets Henry Higgins, who is a linguistics professor, and his new friend Colonel Pickering, who is also interested in linguistics. And Pickering places a bet with Higgins that Higgins can't teach Eliza to speak clearly and properly like a lady so that she can get a better job. And so they proceed to teach Eliza how to speak clearly, not Cockney. All the way through, they are oblivious to the impact that this will have on Eliza's life, except, you know, she might be able to get a better job in a better flower shop. But all the women around Higgins and Pickering are concerned, because what is Eliza going to do when she acts and speaks like a lady, but she has to go back to living in poverty? And in contrast to that is Eliza's dad, who's quite happy being poor. He's happy to have a drink in the pub every night because that's socially acceptable in his class. And by the end of the play, he's inherited money and he has to become moral. He has to become an upstanding citizen. He has to get married. His life now sucks. So the name Pygmalion comes from the ancient Greek myth of Pygmalion and Galatea. Pygmalion's a sculptor who sculpts the most beautiful woman out of marble and falls in love with her, and eventually Aphrodite, I'm sure it must be Aphrodite, makes her human and they get married. In Pygmalion, the play, this doesn't happen, and in the 1941 version, which is what I've read, there's a whole, after the play is over, a whole section explaining exactly why Eliza Doolittle and Henry Higgins would not and could not ever be married. And it saddens me that Bernard Shaw has had to be quite explicit in saying this cannot and will not happen, because all the beats, all the acts are set up like a romance, and you expect, and there is a romance. Eliza does marry, but she doesn't marry Henry, and that's the outcome the audience is expecting. That's the outcome of the movie My Fair Lady. And so Shaw puts in a lot of effort in explaining no, it's not going to happen, and production companies still continue to change it so that Higgins and Eliza gets married, because that's what your romantic heart wants, but it's not what happens. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars. The whole time I was hearing My Fair Lady in my head, and that's on me, but I enjoyed this for what it was as well. This next one doesn't really count as a book, but I did look at every single page, and whatever, I'm counting it. It's Susan Herbert, Cats Galore, a compendium of cultured cats. This was published in 2015, and it's a compilation of her other books. It is famous artworks, it is famous movies, and it's famous, I think, TV shows? No, plays. Yeah, I'll get them confused. Redrawn with cats, so I think this is actually the cover picture as well. Cat with a pearl earring. There's a portrait of Henry, The Sound of Music. So that was very sweet. It's not mine. It was a gift for my daughter from a friend of hers, but I read it and I liked it. 3 stars. So the next one was one I read for uni in PDF format, and it is the short story by Reid. This was published in 1977, so it's really dated by now, but really it's just a really short book, only 5 chapters long, broadly outlining the history of the short story, the definition of short story, where they evolved from, discussing some key names like Edgar Allan Poe, Nathaniel Hawthorne, Catherine Mansfield, and looking at some examples and the difference between short story and novella. I mean, it's an academic work from the 70s. It's really dry. You'd only read it if you Robert Eaglestone, Doing English, a guide for literature students. But I saw this referenced in some lecture notes and it sounded interesting, so I grabbed it, I read it. The cover is gorgeous. I'm a sucker for a white cover, you know, and this one was really good. It's definitely designed for teaching English students or being an entry-level English student. It covers how we read, what we read, and then a little bit of critical analysis, and then why are we studying English? Why are we here? What are we doing this for? And that part I found really good, really useful. And if you are doing an English degree, highly recommend this one. I don't think I've given it a star rating here. I think this is the point in my bullet journal where I got confused about life and I did not write any notes on this one. But that's okay, it was good, and we'll move on. The next one came out just before Christmas on Audible only, which is a shame. This is Bill Bryson's The Secret History of Christmas. Bill Bryson is a non-fiction writer who writes pop history about, and he's written pop science as well, like a brief history of everything, and I've read that one, and The Secret Life, what is it called? Like the origins of normal everyday household things. I will write down what it's actually called below. So I knew what I was in for here. I find his writing somewhat amusing, somewhat informative. The parts that I already know about, he speaks with authority, so on the parts that I don't know anything about, I trust his research. But he's a terrible narrator. He narrates all his books, and like me, he's a slurrer and a mumbler, and you're here choosing to listen to that. But in an audiobook, you really got to lean into it or give up because it's just annoying. But I leaned into it like I have with Bryson's other books, and it was okay. Because it's an Audible original, it's only available on audio on Audible, and so you won't get to listen to it if you're avoiding either of those things. But it's also in the Audible Plus catalogue, so if you are an Audible member, you can listen to it without spending any more money. And it's only 3 hours long. This just went over brief things like this. It's not even the secret history, like he obviously researched it, it's not that hidden. It's just bringing up those trivia things that you might have forgotten or you might not have known that will make you sound interesting when people actually you about Christmas. You can actually them back with some cool knowledge. We like historical knowledge. The chapters are broken up into origins, strange customs, the near death of Christmas, Santa, and Christmas foods. Oh, I have written down the name of his other book here in my notes. It's called At Home, A Short History of Private Life. And I wrote that in my notes because he recycles some of these little anecdotes. And that's fine. Because it's history, and because it's the history of Christmas, it put me in a real festive mood. I was not feeling it before then. But you know, you can take the girl out of history, but you can't take history out of the girl. And I really liked it. The restarts. This one was totally influenced by another YouTuber. I will link her. Kelly, she was reading Picnic at Hanging Rock by Joan, Lindsay. And this is an Australian classic that I had never read. So high time I changed that. Published in 1967, and it's in our pop culture heritage, isn't it? If you're Australian, you will know what happens, even if you don't know what happened. It's the story of girls living at a private school near Bendigo who go to, near Ballarat. Anyway, they travel to a real place called Hanging Rock for a picnic on Valentine's Day, and 4 of the girls go missing, and only one of them's ever seen again. And it's a massive mystery. The cops get involved, obviously. Nothing's ever discovered. And it's not so much about the mystery, because the mystery is never solved. It is about the ripples of what happens to everybody else affected by this mystery. There's obviously the governess of the school, the implications for her. There's other members of staff at the school and the implications for them. There's an entirely unrelated family who happened to be at Hanging Rock that day. One of those people gets obsessed with the case and what happens to him and the staff of his house. And it's just all like that butterfly effect of the mystery is the center point, but it's not the point of the story. It's the effects of the mystery. And so it kind of just ends, and there's no resolution. But if you do read it and you want a resolution, there was an unpublished chapter which is now summarized on Wikipedia, which Kelly also told me about, and it explains kind of what the mystery was, but not really. But I highly recommend. It was really interesting. I love a mystery, and the part where it wasn't solved made it even better because I still think about it a lot. 3.5 stars. I liked it. And I know I've done way more than 5 books in this video, but does that even count? It's a tiny short, like it's tiny. It doesn't even count as a book. It's 57 pages, and this is Galatea by Madeline Miller. Now Galatea, you might remember, is the statue that Pygmalion sculpted out of marble and fell in love with, and then Aphrodite woke her up and they got married. This is Galatea's story. What happens once she's woken up? What happens when she's no longer marble and she has to be a wife and a mother and a human? So this is a little short story exploring that, and it was great. This was in a Black Friday sale, so it was cheap, and I would recommend picking it up when it's cheap, because I think full price is $10, which is not okay. I mean, that's the cost of making books, but this is a tiny version of a book. And I gave Galatea 3.5 stars. So there's another 5 books I read this year. I'm nearly done with my 2022 reads. Thank you for sticking around and hearing my thoughts about them. Get in touch with me I'm still on Twitter, I'm on Mastodon, I'm on Instagram, I'm here, I'm on Storygraph. And if you'd like to support my channel, you can subscribe, or you can head down and have a look at my Amazon wish list, and if you see anything there you like that you'd like to see me read, send it my way and I will read it, and I will thank you because you're awesome. And if you don't do that, you're awesome anyway. And have a great day. Bye.